I'll kind of walk through the opening
process
remarks and stuff. Yeah, the process for tonight.
All righty, no problem. So we'll just hang out here.
Okay, all right. Well, again, thanks for everyone for being here. It does look like we're up and going. We are recording. Just as a matter of formality, we are calling this meeting to order. This is the Town of Davidson Board of Adjustment. Today is January 13th, 2021. Time is 6:02 p.m. We have a quorum. The members hearing this matter tonight are myself, Matt Dellinger, the chair, Kate Barr, Lindsay Williams, Ellen Donaldson, and Michael Flake. We have present with us David Cole from the town, as well as the town interim attorney, Steve Gamble, the town clerk, Betsy Shores, and the applicants here are Ken and Martha Gumieni. And apologies if that is not the correct pronunciation. Is it close?
It's Gummini, but that's close. That was pretty close.
Gummini. That's way easier. I was trying to
Gum
add
like a Jew, knee like a bend. Gum and knee.
Okay, Gummini. Okay, well, perfect. Well, I'll try to probably just refer to you as Ken and Martha. This is based on your application for a variance tonight. Before we get started, part of our procedures are to ask any board members if there are any conflicts of interest or any particular special knowledge that needs to be disclosed under our rules of procedure at the outset of this. So I'm going to pause, and if any of you have any of those conflicts or issues you need to raise, please do so now. Okay, I'm seeing head shakes. Okay, so I think we're all clear there. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, and for anyone who's never been through this, just real quick as a kind of summary explanation, this is not a full-blown court hearing. It's quasi-judicial, not fully judicial. And what that essentially means is we have some relaxed standards in terms of the evidence that can be presented and considered. We are not hard and fast on the civil rules of procedure that you would have to follow in court. However, we do have standards which are prescribed by state statute that we do have to follow, and that our decision has to be based upon. And chiefly among those is that the evidence that we do consider has to be competent, material, and substantial evidence. Competent essentially goes to the heart of who can offer certain types of information. That person has to have certain bases of knowledge if they're going to testify as an expert on something. And there are certain matters that lay people cannot provide expert testimony on. I'm not going to go through a full course on how that is handled, but suffice it to say, those are standards we do have to look for. Everything that's being offered in terms of testimony has to be sworn, give that indication of reliability and verification on it. You will have the right to ask questions. You have the right as parties to this matter to object to evidence. The board members will be able to ask questions. There are points in the night where if something is not clear, we may ask for something to be brought back up and further clarified. And in the same token, if you guys have questions, please feel free. This is your application. Please feel free to raise those questions to us. Understanding that part of this is for you to present your evidence to us. It is your burden of establishing what you're requesting, and it's not up to our board to offer information or evidence into this hearing. We're simply to review what's presented to us and make our determination accordingly. With that, are there any questions about how this will go?
Just trying to turn the sound up, so that's not it.
And let me make a note about that as well, not only while we're talking about for the record, this is being conducted by consent of all the parties via
There's the
Zoom.
camera.
And that was already predetermined and previously agreed upon by all. And so we are all here remotely by Zoom. It is
Sorry.
being recorded. There will be a
We
transcript
lost
available.
connection.
I think I've lost the visual for a second. I was trying to turn up my volume and not being the expert that I am. Maybe this is it here. Join the meeting, yes.
What about here?
That's
So-
a comment.
Can you guys hear us?
I can hear you, but
We
I
can't
didn't
see you.
turn up my volume
How about
very well,
refresh?
and I don't know.
Okay.
Is
So
this
let-
on Microsoft? I'm gonna go Microsoft and just see if
You're,
this,
you're downloading an add-on.
okay. Yeah, I don't know what I did.
That's okay. So let's try to figure that out. Because we can hear and we can see you, and I can see and hear everyone else. Let me try to see if I can. Now you're lost. Never mind. All right. So just sit tight.
Okay, we're back.
Okay,
Sorry.
not touching anything else.
No, That's okay. No worries. And that's actually where I was about to go with my next comment. Hopefully you guys had heard everything I had said up till then. This is via Zoom. That is by agreement of all the parties. And in that breath, if we have moments like we just had where one of any of us fall off, whether it be a board member or the applicants or the town, we will have to just stop what we're doing and wait until we get everyone back up, because that is what we will have to do to protect the record in this. So back to the question, Ken, Martha, did you guys have any questions for us about this before we start?
No, I've been speaking with David, who has really tried to help me, get through everything, or at least try to, support.
Give you what you
give
need.
me what I needed to try to get the information to you all. And
We've never done this
yeah,
before,
this is the
so
first one for us. We came from Pennsylvania, and we had a little over about an acre and a half of ground, and
Hang on before we go into any of the substance, because what we need to do now is swear you guys in, swear David Cole in,
Okay.
because then we will get into the case and start hearing the information to be presented. Okay.
Okay.
So just real quick, we're not in person, so we're not going to do a swearing on the Bible, but we will affirm to tell the truth. So real quick, for David Cole, Ken Gamini, and Martha Gamini, and is anyone else that I don't see intending to offer any sort of evidence tonight? Okay, I don't hear that from anyone. So this is for David, Ken, and Martha. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes.
I do.
Okay, great. So we're sworn in. So now we will turn into the case. The process will go, David will provide the staff report at the outset. Then we will hear from Ken and Martha with respect to their presentation. And if there is any other information that is to be offered after that, we'll take that up. And real quick, sorry, last housekeeping note, because of we are on Zoom, everyone should remain muted if they are not actively speaking, and I can handle that. I can mute you. I can't unmute you, I believe. Perfect. Okay. David?
Okay, so do you all see the title page for the presentation?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so I will, if you just give me one moment, I'm plugged into multiple screens here, so I want to make sure everything is good. Okay, so this is just a brief summary of the different materials that you may have in front of you or have been sent to review in regards to this case. So the evidence that was submitted as part of the applicant's package gives a pretty good overview of what is going on in this case. So presented here is just a simple vicinity map showing the location of 321 Jib Court in relation to the center of the town of Davidson. It is part of the Spinnaker Cove community, which is located between the Circles of 30 neighborhood and historic downtown. This neighborhood was approved under a special use permit and is now part of town limits beginning in 1980, I believe. So here's a closer up view of the property. 321 Jib Court shares some adjacent property owners within the neighborhood, including HOA land and 5 other parcels of a similar nature. So in this case, and this is reflected in my staff analysis that was sent to you all, in the summer of 2020, the applicants, Ken and Martha Gummany, they installed a 10 by 12 utility shed on their property at 321 Jib Court. This shed was given approval by the Homeowners Association, and the applicant then installed it in accordance, to my knowledge, in accordance with that approval. That approval did come along with requirements to install landscaping. The applicant did not secure a building permit from the town of Davidson nor Mecklenburg County, which due to the structure size is a requirement under state statute. In doing so, the applicant installed the shed, which is out of conformity with the town of Davidson Planning Ordinance section 4.5.8 C1 and section 4.5.8 C2. Those requirements dictate that a minimum of 10 feet shall be maintained between the proposed accessory structure and the principal structure, which the submitted site plan shows 6 feet between the structure and the home. In addition, 458C2 indicates that accessory structures shall be located in the rear yard only, which according to the site plan, the utility shed is located in the right side yard of the property, not in the rear yard. This structure was installed this way because, as you can see, according to the 2000 survey, the home formally does not sit on the lot with a rear yard available. It does have a side and front yard available. So that led to the decision to locate the shed where it currently is. So here's a photograph of the shed taken from Jib Court. It indicates that it does sit rather close to the home. The home is located here to the left side of the image. So here's a summary of the 2 ordinance, or here's an image of the 2 ordinance provisions and a summary of the structure's nonconformity. So because it is located less than 10 feet from the structure and in the side yard of the home, when the applicant reached out, we were unable to give him a building permit for the structure. So for us to, the only route for the structure to remain where it is currently located and for us to give him a building permit that under the town of Davidson planning ordinance, the applicant would need a variance to move forward. And I won't get into the specific variance requests because that will be more along the lines of what the applicant will explain to you. But those requests are listed here, and they are listed in the application and other materials given. So it's a rather simple situation. It's a smaller structure, but that's all the information that I have to present to you. That's kind of a summary of what's in the staff analysis document. I also will note, those of you at home, the 4 findings of fact that will be referenced throughout the night are also listed on the 2nd page of the staff analysis. So that will be a helpful guide to you.
Okay, thank you, David. Any questions for David from the board right now? Okay, I don't see any from anyone. Okay, so Ken and Martha, if you can unmute yourselves and now take us through what you would like to share with us. We do have all of your materials that you submitted if you're welcome to pull them up on your screen or just reference them, as long as we can understand what you want us to see, if you're wanting us to see something that you're referencing.
Is there a way for us to bring the whole PowerPoint up?
We are probably not the most
Technologically savvy.
advanced. Dave and I tried to talk about that, and he said, do you want to do like a slide presentation? And he said, maybe you could practice it. And this was yesterday. And I'm like, I have never done
We
this
can hold it up.
before. I mean, I guess we could hold up things like and reference it as far as
Let's do that. Let's do that. And I'm not going to tell you how to present your case, but I do think that we are capable of following. If you say we're on our presentation, the one that starts, that is your opening page.
Right.
You
We
have
all
the
have that
availability to
Right.
see all of that?
That's where I am
We have it.
Okay.
starting.
Now, do you need us to show that, or could we refer to it as page such and such or whatever?
You can refer to it as page such and such.
Okay,
We'll follow along.
all right.
Okay. Well, obviously we are here for a variance request from the following provisions from section 4.5-8 accessory structure, subsection C1 and C2 location accessory structure. I want to throw, if I can, a little bit of light into this. When we were going to our HOA to ask for permission to do this, it was a long process. It took over 6 months for me to get through everything and get final approvals from them. And so when I had things set up to have this shed or utility shed near the fence, not near the house, the board themselves asked me to move it towards the house so it would look more, it wouldn't look more as a separate structure of what, that would be. So, and then we said we would certainly put in some landscaping that's going to be a minimum of 7 feet, which the landscaping that we've decided to use will grow up to about 12 feet, 12 to 14 feet, depending on how it's shaped. So, as far as the 10 feet from the house, unfortunately, I went on their recommendation on moving it over. So I have a little entryway under my home that I needed to be able to get into it's like a crawl space. So I made sure it was back a little bit, and I thought I measured 7 feet. If someone came and measured it and it's 6 feet, then it could be 6 feet, but I originally was supposed to be 7 feet so I could make sure I could get anything I need to get into the crawl space.
They asked us to put it where it is.
So that's just based on the one variant request, which looks like that, which is what I just read. And I guess.
Read each page.
Honey, I'm not, well, you.
I'll read it. Okay, so the next page, according to the variance application below, are findings of the fact the board must determine in the affirmative before it can issue a variance from the ordinance. So what we cited was the first one: unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance. It shall not be necessary to demonstrate that in the absence of the variance, no reasonable use can be made of the property. Number two, the hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. Hardships resulting from personal circumstances, as well as hardships resulting from conditions that are common to the neighborhood or the general public, may not be the basis for granting a variance. The hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. The act of purchasing the property with knowledge that circumstances exist that may justify the granting of a variance shall not be regarded as a self-created hardship. The requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such as that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved.
Right, those are the four.
That was for,
This is the first one.
okay, that's the
So
first
our-
one.
Our response to
So-
the first one is this.
Okay, this is the response to that. Unnecessary
No,
hardship.
that was-
Oh, okay, so strict application of the ordinance would result in the accessory structure being demolished. Due to the placement of the primary structure, hereinafter referred to as the house, within the property lines, the rear yard is so narrow that there is no placement on the property that would permit the accessory structure to be in compliance with the ordinance. And even if there were an appropriate placement in that rear yard, that would be in compliance with the ordinance. There is not. The cost associated with moving the accessory structure is cost prohibitive.
So does everybody know exactly where we are right now? Okay.
Yes.
So then the next page, we have below photos showing the narrowness of the yard. On the left, the tape runs through the rear yard from one property marker to the other side. And on the right, between the fence and the yellow tape is land belonging to the homeowners association. From the yellow tape to the house is land owned by the property owners, us, at 321 Jib Court.
And just for the sake of the record, these photographs that you've included, were those photographs that you yourselves took?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, we
I
actually-
found the land markers
right,
and then I put,
tape.
yeah,
I mean, these are on the actual land markers that are placed in the ground of our property.
Okay.
Okay,
this is
now,
number two.
number two, the hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. Hardships resulting from personal circumstances, as well as hardships resulting from conditions that are common to the neighborhood or general public, may not be the basis for granting a variance. Okay, hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property. The placement of the house within the property lines provides generous front yard and a decent side yard, but a very small rear yard. The rear fence erected by the previous property owners enclosed approximately 12 feet of common property that is owned by the homeowners association. To a visual observer, this may initially appear as part of the property owner's property, but it is not. Additionally, abutting the rear property line is a 5-foot easement for Duke Power Company, which serves as a good marker for the required 5-foot setback. Based on the April 27, 2000 survey plat for 321 Jib Court, one portion of the rear edge of the house appears to touch Duke Property Company easement, leaving no space at all for an accessory structure. The remainder of the rear wall of the house is only approximately 10 feet from the border of the Duke Power Company easement. This leaves insufficient space for an accessory structure to be located in the rear yard and still be 10 feet from the house. There is a back corner of the property where the accessory structure could be placed 10 feet from the house. However, it would then protrude into the side yard. And if rotated, the accessory structure could be placed solely in the rear yard, but would encroach on the 10-foot setback required from the house under section 4.5.8. The next page actually is the survey for the survey plat for 321 Jib Court, showing that.
And you can see in that survey that the driveway is literally cut off.
We do have a driveway
We do have a
there.
driveway which goes up about 3-4 feet from the fence, but evidently it's not part of our property. We were told that that was supposedly grandfathered in so we can use it for our cars.
So number three, the same hardship didn't result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. The act of purchasing the property with knowledge that circumstances exist that may justify the granting of a variance shall not be regarded as self-created hardship. The hardship is not the result of actions taken by the property owner. The property owner contacted the board members and management company, then known as CSI Properties, of the Homeowners Association, Spinnaker Cove Patio Homeowners Association, and not only received approval from both entities before proceeding with construction of the accessory structure, but the property owner placed the accessory structure in its current location, 7 feet from the house, at the request of the board members. The property owner initially intended to place the accessory structure in compliance with section 4.5.8, C1 near the fence line, but moved the structure closer to the house in order to accommodate the requests of the board members. The next page shows the approval that we received from the Homeowners Association. And the page after that shows our future planning for the landscaping. Pending the approval, we do plan to add cherry, skip laurel between the shed and the street. This was agreed upon the Homeowners Association also. Number 4, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, such that the public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. The variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance, and substantial justice is achieved because granting the variance would ensure the property owner is able to use common accessory structure in a manner similar to others in the community of Davidson. Even though the property is a peculiar layout, there is no threat to public safety as a result of the requested variance. Okay,
Does anybody have any questions about any of this so far? No?
Okay, the next page shows the photographs actually of the shed from the street from different areas,
Different angles.
And also the page after that. Now the page after that shows actually
There's a different.
what we see when we go outside, you know, so obviously that's not what you're seeing from the road. That's in our backyard. Now what's the page after that? Okay, and then I think the page, I'm not sure.
This was already in David's.
Okay, I believe the last page is the thanking you for the consideration of this request. Is that what you have as the last page?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we're just asking
For some help.
for some help, and if you would consider allowing us to retain.
You know, I will throw one other thing in. You know, when we moved into this community, we were really welcomed with open arms, and the Karen, who is one of the heads of the board,
member. She's one of the
you know,
members.
I had asked her literally when we, you know, I don't know, after we were here for a very short time, if it was, you know, there's any problem in doing this. And she assured me absolutely not, should not be a problem whatsoever. So,
And let me just caution a little bit there. That's kind of running into hearsay where you're referring to
Right,
someone else's
right.
statement.
oh,
So
Okay.
let us, you know,
Okay.
not say
Yeah.
refer to any people or anything. In other words, we did seek out approval verbally before we even, you know,
went through the
went
motions.
into any of this, you know, because having never been involved in this kind of a community HOA or anything, we did want to make sure that we were abiding by what we should, you know, and we thought that what we did really
Was the right thing.
was we really tried our best to do what we thought was correct.
I understand.
So, that's it.
So let me ask a couple of questions to make sure that I'm clear and to make sure that anyone else who might have these questions is clear. But back in your presentation, the page where the two photographs with the yellow tape pulled across the rear of your lot.
Yeah.
Okay. And I believe I picked up the answer to this on the subsequent page or the page after that. Between that yellow tape and that back fence, that's about 12 feet. Is that what I understood from a subsequent page?
It depends a little bit from where you are. I
It
think
tapers?
it does.
Yeah, it
taper.
does. It's a little bit angled.
It goes,
It's not straight.
I had actually a picture. Hold on one second.
Get the actual photographs out.
That, hold on one second. This is it here. So it's actually, I don't, maybe
I don't know if
we
that's-
somehow messed this up. If I can show you this picture, this was actually, I think it's 20 feet from the back fence. And there, I have this picture also in measuring that to the fence. And then I took a picture of the, what's it, 240 inches? 230, 240 inches, which.
To the rear fence from that yellow
Yes.
tape. Okay. So real quick, I'm gonna make a note to remind us to get those photographs from you that you just showed us. We'll need those to be part of this record since they've
Okay.
been shown. But I do appreciate that clarification. So it's about 240 or 204 inches.
240 inches.
Well, it's
240.
less than, that's 240.
Well, it's it's 239, but it literally comes out to about 20 feet in there, if you can see that.
Okay. Okay.
You're going back.
And so that, and from that yellow tape to that back fence, that 20-foot strip of land, rectangular roughly with a little bit of taper, that is HOA owned property.
Yes, sir.
So
And on that
this-
first 5 feet of it going away from your house, on the first 5 feet of it on the opposite side of that yellow tape is a 5-foot right of way for Duke Power for utility easements. Is that right?
yes,
I
think
think
that's
that is correct.
yes.
I
Okay.
think that is correct.
I believe that's what I see in the survey
Yeah.
that you presented to us.
Okay.
Yes.
Then
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. So let me ask you a question in terms of when you are having conversations, going through the process and exploring it. In the homeowners association letter to you dated May 5th, 2020, where it talks about the architectural review committee has approved it. And then it goes down and it's got some italicized language in it. It would seem to me that that italicized language on May 5th,
Where's the paper?
you need to find it before I start referencing
Well,
it.
I think you're, I can't read it because we just have a copy of it.
Okay, and let me just read it then for the record. It's in here, but it basically says, ARC approval of plans shall not constitute a representation, warranty, or guarantee that such plans and specifications comply with engineering design practices or zoning and building ordinances or other governmental agency regulations or restrictions. Now, I know that's italicized language. I know it's at the end of a letter stating approval from an HOA. Did you see that when that letter came to you?
Obviously, it didn't, no, not, I mean,
it didn't really
it
register.
didn't
us with this.
register, that it meant, I guess, it didn't register that we needed to do anything.
I guess we're a little bit relying on our board to say, hey, listen, this structure is, we didn't even know a 10 by 10 didn't need a permit. If I would have known that might have been my answer. But nobody has shared any of that information, and
pretty much relying on their guidance.
We've never dealt with the homeowners before. So, we've had, like I said, about 1.5 acres of ground, and we just, if you wanted to do something, you did it. You didn't, now we knew we had to ask. So we thought we were going through the proper channels to ask for that information.
Okay. Any questions from other members? I don't want to monopolize this opportunity right now. Kate?
I have a question. I hope David can offer some insight into looking at the spirit of the ordinance. Can you speak to why 10 feet from an adjacent building was the number that the town decided on?
I don't have a firm answer as to why that was the number. I know that generally separation from other structures is both an aesthetic consideration as well as, for example, fire code. I believe that comes into play as well, just making sure that separation exists. With that being said, we do have plenty of structures in town that are close to other structures that are grandfathered non-conforming. But I was not here when that portion was written, so I can't speak to the exact nature.
Got it. And any insight about the rear yard versus side yard? I'm presuming it's aesthetic, but.
That's generally an aesthetic consideration.
Okay. Thanks.
Lindsay, I believe I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, I guess just for anecdotal reasons, why did you all decide for the side yard and not the rear yard? What were the discussions related to that?
Because the homeowner association asked us to put it there.
But why?
Aesthetically, they
You
felt
mean
that it looked.
closer to the house, you mean?
Yeah.
Aesthetically,
they had asked us to, they had talked about us possibly putting a fence to make it look like it's a little bit more
like
connected.
part of the house.
And we said, well, what if we did like shrubbery? And they said,
Oh, that'd be a great
as long
idea.
as it's, as long as it's like, it stays 12 months a year.
They didn't want something flowering and
going away. They wanted something that was more evergreen, like that stays, 12 months a year. I keep saying 24 because I keep thinking 24 hours in a day, but 12 months a year.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'm going to follow up on that because I had somewhat of a related question. You've talked about why it was separated from the house as far as it was. On your slide where you're talking about the second criteria for a variance, that the hardship results from conditions peculiar to the property, and then you have your 2 bullet points. That second bullet point, you talked about there's a back corner of the property where it could be placed 10 feet away from the house, but it would protrude into your side yard. And if rotated, it could be solely in the rear yard, but it would be more or less than 10 feet away from your house.
Yeah, all the speculations that I went out and tried to do if I stayed on my property, there was no place that I could put it to try to fulfill every article of each, what's the right word I want?
What the requests are.
Right, what the requests are, that it's not 10 feet from the house and it's not, it's required to be in the backyard. There was just, if you came over and we went through the tape measure, which is what I was trying to do that day, I just couldn't get it to work.
And when did you do that exercise of measuring, seeing if it would fit? When did you do that?
I think that was it was the end of the summer, wasn't it?
Was it before or after you received a notice of violation?
Oh, no, it was, unfortunately, it was after.
Yeah, because
that
we were
we
trying
received
to
the
figure
violation.
everything out. and there was-
We just didn't think there was going to be a violation.
And that's kind of where my question was going is was that series of questions, was that exercise ever done back in the conversations when you were getting instructions from your HOA?
No, because they didn't want it back there. That we put it where they asked us to put it.
That back
They
corner?
wanted it on, no, they
No,
wanted it on the side yard. They did not want it in the back of it.
Okay.
I don't know if that's
Well-
100% correct. I think it was going to go up by the fence. Like if you look in, there is a fence in this picture, which I think you all would have, that there's a fence that comes down. So I was going to put it more so in the back, but closer to that fence. So the space would be between the home and the structure. They asked me to move it closer to the home so it would look like, and I guess what they were thinking and this is, again, I'm thinking for somebody else and I shouldn't be doing this, but in my head, they were hoping it would look what we've seen in our neighborhood. People have built like little fences for their trash cans, or they've made something for a storage area that they've just built a fence out and then around to
So
make
it
it
looks like
so
it's
it
part
looks
of the
like it's a
house.
little more connected to the home. And that's what I think they were thinking. And that's when we decided to go into to put the landscaping in.
And just so I'm also crystal clear, this is not a modular unit. This was,
No,
No,
no, it was built.
yeah,
Yeah,
no, I have a stone
board by
foundation.
board,
I have a stone, I have a stone foundation. I did a lot of work to try to prep for it.
And
Have
it
you
has the required paint it has the required siding and even the trim paint, even the shingles,
Yeah,
everything is in
I'm just-
100% agreement with our neighborhood.
have you had any conversation with anyone about the feasibility of moving it?
As
No.
far as from I'm not sure I understand.
Rather than demolishing and rebuilding, have you had a conversation with anyone about, is it feasible to relocate that shed if it had to be relocated?
I did try to call somebody. He said, it
would
just
be
depends if
thousands
he
of-
would, it just depends if he could get into it. And he would need to come over and look at it to see, because there's getting into our backyard where it is. It's a little challenging, to say the least. And that was his only concern. He says he can move any shed. He said it's just whether he can get to it with his equipment or not.
We don't have
To
much
do it.
room.
But just to throw one other thing quickly for you all, when we went there, I didn't, when we ended up buying the shed and having it built and everything, I messed up a little bit and didn't put the right shingles on it. I did go and spend another $500 to re-shingle it to the homeowners association specs. And, I just want everybody to understand that we literally have tried to do everything we can to do the right thing for the place we live, because we enjoy where we live. We like where we live.
We would never have.
Our grandkids are down here. We retired down here. We're looking to make this a home where we can stay, and
David, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
Yep, nope, that's it.
The only problem is that we have a small home, and we don't have, at any rate.
We appreciate all of that, for sure. I don't want to make light of that, and I don't want to cut you off if you had other information.
No.
But David, I do have a question for you, and this is to further solidify the 10 feet, or no, I'm sorry, the rear yard as it would be construed based on our ordinance, would that be from the back building line? Meaning in this case, they have a little portion of their home that sticks further back than the bulk of their home. Would rear yard be construed to extend after that furthest back point, or would it be somewhere else?
It would be measured from rear building line. So if you look on the survey, the easement line nearest to the house is not exact, but it is close to what that rear building line would look like.
Okay. So that back corner that they had referenced in their presentation, kind of over, that would still be considered, for lack of a better word, not their rear yard under our ordinance.
It would all be considered side yard based on the ordinance projected to the rear and front lot lines.
Okay. Kate?
I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly, and this is sort of building on Matt's question about the possibility of moving the shed. I think if I understand correctly, there's nowhere that you could move the shed that would conform with the ordinance. Am I getting that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board? Michael Flake?
Let's see. David, I think the answer is yes, but I'll just ask it. The structure, the accessory structure conforms to every other part of the accessory structure ordinance except these two. Is that correct?
So that would be correct.
All right. That was the dumb question, just to make sure.
I will say it will not be considered conforming until we have a permit for it. So it's also considered non-conforming by section 14.11, but if the variance is secured, that won't be an issue either.
Got it. And then to Ken and Martha, maybe to help me, can you just walk me through the timeline? It sounds like you were doing HOA stuff for 6 months. So when did you decide you actually wanted to build the thing, and then kind of walk me through the timeline from there?
You want me to do it?
No, you can do it, yeah.
Okay, well, and my recollection is when we moved in, the particular place we live in is about 1,400 square feet. And I did make some adjustments in my attic for a few things, but we had planned on seeing if we could do the accessory shed. And so conversation had been going on for quite a while. And it was, so I would say over a year of just basic conversation. I will say at one point, and again, this is where us trying to just comply, I had the shed being brought over to being built, and my neighbor, I won't say a name, came out and said, "Ken, you don't have a formal approval yet." And these guys are sitting there, they're ready to go. And I'm going like, "Karen, I do. I have, it says approval subject to these two things." Oh, I'm sorry, I said the name. And she said, "Well, listen, if you do it, you may have to move it or tear it down." And I said, so I gave the guys a little bit of money for their time and convenience. And I said, "Guys, I'm really sorry." And that's why it took a little bit longer, because I couldn't even get back on the schedule for them for about almost 2 months. So I walked away from that at that point and got all the approvals that we thought we needed, except for, not being, I guess, unaware, ignorant. I don't know either which one, but that we really should have gone to Davidson. I wish just somebody in my homeowners would have said, "Go up to Davidson just to double check, and you should be good to go as long as they approve," which would have been my next step if I would have known that ahead of time.
And we thought, I guess, if they would approve it, that it would be falling within the guidelines
Of
of
what we needed to
of
do.
what we needed to do for everyone.
And then do I understand then from your explanation, part of even the question of why have an accessory structure, it sounded, why have the accessory structure? You kind of answered it, but just, I'll ask it.
We have bicycles, we have, we don't have a garage, and, just for, When we go to Costco and get toilet paper. No, I'm
It's
sorry.
literally, that's where it goes.
Fair.
And paper towels, you know,
And I
And
bought
then
her an electric bike.
you've not sought an estimate on what it would cost to relocate it. Did I understand that right?
I didn't seek the actual
a
estimate,
hard
a
one,
hard number.
I understand.
you know, a verbal, you know, probably a couple
Because after,
$1,000s.
I would imagine it's going to be fairly expensive because we would have to redo foundations and everything else like that. So, yeah, it would probably be a little bit much. And then to find a
And
right
then-
place to put it would, you know, I mean, if I'm not going to be in the ordinance, I think my option would be, unfortunately, to tear it down. So,
And not even
should be crazy.
from what we understand, there isn't a place to move it to. That's part of the problem.
And then the structure of it, it sounds like there's a stone foundation. Can you
Yes.
describe to me sort of the nature of the accessory structure, stone foundation?
It's a stone
Yeah.
foundation, and then there's cinder blocks, and then it's then the basic foundation of the flooring on top of that.
And it also has a little a ramp also. Here's another,
Mhm.
this is a little bit more of a close-up from how we would enter it. You know, it has windows.
And we even put like lath around the bottom
Yeah,
of it to
we-
try to make it look, you know, it's funny. I thought in my brain, I was like, if anybody's going to have a shed to compare it to, it's going to be my shed. And I just,
We really tried to make the nicest thing we could. And I mean, we've even thought about, you know, at one point, putting a matching fence to the house to connect it so that it would look like part of the house,
Mhm.
you know? So, I mean, we tried.
we tried.
And then I understand from what you had said, Ken, that the shed is 10 by 12, so whatever that is, 120 square feet,
Yes, sir.
Correct.
right over the. David, my last question for David, in C of the ordinance, number 5, it says exceptions or minor variations to the accessory structure location regulations may be permitted with the approval of the planning director. Have you sought Jason's input on this?
So whenever we have a situation like this, Jason is only really able to give that exception prior to issuance of a building permit. So this was a situation where it was
Jason is the planning director, I guess.
Yes.
Jason Burdette. I should
yeah,
be more
Jason
official.
Burdette.
Yes.
And this is a situation, and we've seen it before, where because it's installed in nonconformity, he did not give approval for that structure's location, and that automatically kicks it to BOA to make a determination. So I'm not Jason. I can't speak to what he would have decided in this case, but that's our process.
Anyone else with any questions? Okay, we've been asking questions for a little bit of time. I'm gonna invite anyone who might be on here. I just don't see anyone who is a participant right now, who has not spoken or who is agnostic in this matter. So I don't think there's gonna be anyone presenting any contested position in this case, but I'm going to hold my tongue for just a minute and see if I'm wrong. We've not received anything prior to tonight that anyone intended to appear and participate by giving sworn testimony. Let me ask for clarification with David, and have you received any requests from anyone that they believe they have standing to challenge any decision here or wish to participate by giving sworn testimony tonight?
I have received information from 2 adjacent property owners that were interested in providing further information, but were unwilling and or unable to attend tonight to provide sworn testimony.
Okay. Okay, so if we don't have anything that would be competent sworn testimony for us to consider, I believe we have heard and had questions answered. Let me turn this back over to Ken and Martha. Do you guys have any final thoughts that you want to share with us? And let me, I guess you've done an excellent job. Let me commend you on this. You've done a really excellent job of focusing on the 4 criteria under our state statute for a variance, which is what we're required to look for. I really appreciate you staying focused on that and presenting us information relevant to those 4 questions. On those 4 questions, 1, is there an unnecessary hardship? 2, does that hardship result from conditions peculiar to the property? 3, did it not result from actions taken by yourselves? And 4, is it consistent? Would a variance be consistent with the spirit, purposes, and intent of our ordinance? Is there anything further for those 4 that you wish to share with us before we close receiving evidence and start deliberating and considering this for a determination?
I don't
Not
think
that I
so.
can think of, just thank you for the consideration. Thank you for listening, and
Appreciate the
we
opportunity.
appreciate the opportunity to come to y'all to explain our plight.
I understand. And just one last note, please make a note to get those 2 photographs. You can scan them and
Yes.
send them to David.
Yep, we'll get those over. to
You know what,
him.
I will, when,
tomorrow.
after we leave, you know what, I'm going to get them to him in about 5 minutes. He will have them.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, well, you guys are welcome to stick around. Now it's time for David, was there anything further that you needed to share with us?
I'm all set.
Okay, all right. So now is the time for our board to start discussing among ourselves those 4 criteria to determine if this is something for a variance that we can come to an agreement upon. Real quick for the board, just as a reminder, to grant a variance requires a 4/5 vote in favor of granting a variance. We have options to grant a variance, deny a variance, or grant it with conditions. With that, let me be quiet and let you guys speak. Anyone who wants to kind of take the reins and talk about any of the 4 criteria, if we feel like it, we've got this box checked, but we're unclear on this, share those thoughts. Let's talk about it. Let's see what kind of consensus we have, and see if we can move this forward. Ellen? Oh, hang on 1 second, Ellen. Ken, you've got to unmute yourself.
Yep, I just wanted to say, we're not certainly trying to make anybody feel uncomfortable. Would you all feel more uncomfortable? More uncomfortable. Would you feel more comfortable if we just kind of backed out of this and you all could then talk about things?
That is your choice. You're welcome to stick around and hear the deliberation. You're also welcome to enjoy the rest of your evening, and you will be notified of the decision.
Well, if I listen to the deliberation and I hear of something that I think I might be able to add to, would I have that opportunity or no?
You can request to add to it, and I do have the discretion to reopen to accept additional evidence, and that could be valuable. So why don't you stick around, listen in, and who knows, we may have a further question for you once we get into some deliberations. If you've got time, stick around.
Okay.
All right, Ellen?
Sure, thank you. I'm happy to kick it off and, want to thank Ken and Martha for, the thorough job that you've done in explaining everything to us, and your PowerPoint presentation, which was very helpful. I'm just going to share my thoughts on this, and then hopefully everybody else can jump in. I do believe that number 1 is a yes, that unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance, primarily given the unique and strange, if you don't mind, contours of the property. In as much as there's no real position where they could move it, where it wouldn't still be in the side yard, and certainly, having to demolish it, to me is not a fair application given the guidance they were given from the HOA. Under the second one, the hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property. I think that's an absolute yes. Given the the contours of the property and the limitations in the rear yard such that it wouldn't accommodate a shed. Number 3, I have to say that the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicants or property owners, because I believe that the property owners are new to town. They worked very closely with their homeowners association, both the management company and the board, in trying to do the right thing. They made a natural assumption that the HOA board and management company would be aware of any town ordinances or restrictions. And to me, they've demonstrated throughout the process that they've tried to do everything they can to comply with the requests from the HOA, who unfortunately misguided these newcomers to town. And then finally, my perspective on item 4, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent. Public safety is secured and justice is achieved. I think yes to that too. I think this is just a very unfortunate circumstance. I think the applicants did everything they could, to do an appropriate shed under the guidance of their HOA and management team. There's certainly not a public safety issue, or there doesn't appear to be one from my perspective. And they've done, to me, everything in their power to ensure that the structure is, virtually identical in materials to their home, such that it looks like an extension of the home. So my perspective is yes to all 4. And I'll answer any questions anyone may have, or I'll mute myself. Any questions?
Any discussion on Ellen's comments? Anything anyone would like to add, Kate?
I have I think general agreement with Ellen. I'm struggling a little bit more with the first one, the first criteria. So, 2, obviously the shape of the lot precludes them from putting the structure anywhere in compliance with the ordinance, and that is peculiar to that piece of property. 3, while they purchased the property knowing the shape of the lot, they did not, create the situation with the HOA and Duke Energy ownership in the backyard. And then 4, they've clearly gone through all of the appropriate channels to ensure that the aesthetics of the structure are in compliance and agreeable to their neighbors and to the neighborhood. It sounds like that's the primary purpose of these ordinances. So I'm with you on those 3. The first one is tricky for me because it sounds like the situation is shed or no shed, not shed here or shed there. And so I don't see a financial hardship in moving it. There's certainly, because there's nowhere to move it. There certainly is a loss of money for having to tear it down. And I guess part of my wonder is, does that count as the financial hardship? Because the cash has already been outlaid. I don't know if that's something, Matt, you can speak to about the definition of financial hardship. Or if there's like a different option they should be considering, like a smaller shed or something that would be conforming. That's the part where I'm still struggling.
So my perspective with respect to that is the hardship does exist with respect to the conditions of the lot. The hardship doesn't exist from the financial question, because the financial hardship was self-created. They installed it without a permit. And that is something that was self-created. However, the lot orientation and the lack of any rear yard as construed under our ordinance, that was not self-created. So there is that nuance, and I wanted to make sure that we're clear on that part. Does that answer the question that you were wanting?
It helps. Thank you.
So let me jump in with just a little nugget of what constitutes an unnecessary hardship. It's not a one-size-fits-all. There's no bright line test. There's no definition. It's a case-by-case determination. It does need to be something more than mere inconvenience, and it needs to be simply something more than just preferring a more lenient standard than the ordinance requires. Cost is not necessarily a determinative factor. It can be considered, but it's not determinative. The real question, and the statute used to be something where you'd have to show, well, you can't make any reasonable use of your property without a variance. That's no longer the question. That's been eliminated. So that's not what we are considering. We are considering is, have they shown with the evidence that they've submitted unnecessary hardship? Even if they've got reasonable use of the property without a variance, are they experiencing an unnecessary hardship due to the conditions of their property? I think my perspective, and it's not some weighted perspective, I don't have a superior opinion in this matter, but my perspective is that there is an unnecessary hardship occurring here in light of the lot circumstances. I do think when we consider these together, these four criteria together too, it's worth noting that when we're looking for substantial justice to be achieved, we are looking for someone to demonstrate that they've attempted to look for compliance, and that they've done due diligence to try to comply, and that in the absence of some compelling reason for the intent of that ordinance to say otherwise, that a variance could be appropriate in this circumstance. So I do think that there has been evidence supporting all four criteria. I know that it can be a difficult question. If anyone would like to speak against the four criteria being supported, I think it sounds like now would be that time. Otherwise, I think we are trending towards looking at a motion for this matter. Okay.
I mean, you know, you're trying to wrap it up, and here I am, you know, just going to pontificate. But I would agree with you. The unnecessary hardship strikes me as the, you know, inability to utilize a structure that is common enough to be listed in an ordinance. So my sense is it's a complicated matter only in that there's the question of where would we build the shed if we were a year ago and we have a shed that's built that's too close to the house and in the side yard. But I would agree with what I hear thus far, that the four criteria seem to be satisfied based on what we've been presented.
Lindsay, do you have anything that you want to add to the discussion?
No, I mean, I think I agree with everyone's thoughts here. I guess my only concern is, I mean, I don't want folks to think that it's the responsibility of HOAs to tell you what the ordinances are. And so I don't know how we tackle that issue and if that's even something we can tackle as a board. But I'm a northerner who moved down here, so I had to learn the hard way as well about HOAs and what they know and what they don't know. And so I don't know what we can do as a board, and this is just, anecdotal here, just to make sure that folks are aware that before you build something on your property, you should reach out to the town if you are unsure if you're allowed to do that without a permit.
Yeah, that's well put, Lindsay, and I agree. I do think that HOAs are a creature somewhat peculiar in North Carolina. We have vastly more than a lot of states, and they can be surprising to a number of folks, especially people who've never lived in one or aren't aware of what they do and do not know, like you mentioned. And it's worth noting, like you mentioned, that this does not endorse or empower coming to us to undo a mistake or a laziness, because I don't know that that's what happened here. In fact, I don't know that we would be in a position to grant or to even consider this or have these discussions like we're having, but for there being no rear yard. In my perspective, if this was not an issue where that rear building line precluded any opportunity for a shed to be anywhere in a rear yard, because there is no rear yard, we would have a different discussion. And I don't think that the HOA communications, approvals, recommendations, whatever representations, I don't know that it would be carrying a whole lot of weight in our discussion right now. So that's a good comment. I appreciate you sharing that, Lindsay. Okay, if there's nothing else that anyone else wants to add to this, I think what I would do is ask for someone to make a motion so that we can take that up with a vote. And as a reminder, our vote will be by roll call, not a showing of hands. So Ellen, you've got a motion for us?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Adjustment approve the variance request for the non-conforming accessory structure located at 321 Jib Court as presented.
Okay. The motion, we will need a second.
Second.
From Kate. Okay. Now I'm going to do a roll call if there's no further discussion about that motion. Okay. So those in favor of the motion as it's been stated by Ellen to approve this variance request, Ellen?
Aye.
Michael?
Yes.
Kate?
Aye.
And Lindsay?
Yes.
And I'm also in favor of that, yes. So that is a 5-0 vote to approve the variance. We do not have any contested information, so a finding of fact is not necessarily required. We have articulated those in our discussion. We will reduce this to an approval and get that issued. Ken and Martha, thank you for your time. We will get that out as quickly as possible. Any questions for us?
No, just thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
This is like
I was too nervous. I couldn't sit and watch.
we
Thank
really
you all,
appreciate.
and welcome to Davidson.
Well, thank you very much.
We love this town.
We
We
are
do.
so excited to be here, and we would never do, I mean, we're very supportive of everything that y'all, that's why we moved here, because we love the town.
And our grandkids.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if you're familiar of a small college called Swarthmore College.
Of course.
Swarthmore is where we came
That's
from.
where it is to live.
Oh, neat.
So I'm very familiar with a small town. Davidson is the same as Swarthmore.
Yep.
And we
Good.
thought it was the same too. And this has helped to let us understand that it really is, and we thank you so very much for all your consideration.
Well, thank you very much. And I'm pleased that you guys did such an excellent job to help us make our determination that we needed to make tonight.
Well, thank you. Thanks. And
Well, you
y'all
all have a
stay
great,
safe
yeah. And I hope if this is your first one, I hope that this is an example that you can do it and it goes smoothly and
everybody else is just as helpful for you.
yes.
Well, I appreciate that. With
Thank you.
that, I think we can take a motion to adjourn. There's no other business before us tonight. So a motion
Thank
to
you.
adjourn.
Move
Thank
to
you, guys.
adjourn.
It was nice meeting you.
Same to you.
Thank you.
Kate has
Second.
made a motion to adjourn. Ellen was a second. All in favor, show of hands for this. Okay, we are complete. It is 7:17 p.m. and this is the end of the hearing. Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Thanks,
Thank
David.
you.